Hey guys, my name is Pocket and this is the first video in a series of League 101 guides I'm going to be making. Specifically, these are going to be focused on champions with rising play rates and emerging metas. These are generally going to be aimed at low to mid-level players looking to climb with them, but I think everybody's going to be able to take something from them. Now, I'm going to keep the advice fairly champion specific because I'm going to do more general role advice in other video series. Now in this video, we're going to be talking about the friendliest tree in Runeterra, and that is of course Ivern. Ivern's a supporting jungler. He was released in 2016 and he's got an extremely unique kit. He's also one of the junglers with the lowest play rate in Season 9, but for all the changes in Season 10, he's seeing a bit of a mini revival. Now, maybe you're looking to pick up Ivern yourself, or maybe you've just seen more Iverns in your game and you're trying to understand how he works and how you can play with and how you can play against him. Either way, I think you're really going to be able to take a lot from this guide, and I think by the end of it, you're really going to have a good understanding of Ivern. So being a 101 guide, I'm going to go from the absolute basics all the way to the niche tips and tricks that are going to get you on the road to mastering Ivern. So feel free to use the timestamps in the video description if you need to navigate around, if you want to see something specific, or if you just want to get past something that feels a little too basic for you. Of course, you can let me know in the comments below if you think I've missed something, and let's get started. So let's start us off by answering the most common questions I get about Ivern, and they are, can he even attack things? What can he even do? And is it just his legs that are that long? Well, the first one's easy. Such a friendly fella is our Ive that he won't even attack jungle monsters. Instead, he channels a grove around them which matures over time. Once it's matured, he can set them free, sending them kindly on their way and protecting them from the enemy jungler, or if your games go anything like mine, your 0-10 Yasuo that you had to mute in champ select. Freeing them gives you all the golden XP, and you can even smite the camp to get an instant release. As you level up, maturation time gets lower and camp clears become much faster. At level 18, it only takes 1 second for a camp to mature. Now, if you've not played Ivern before, this can sound a little complicated, but trust me, you'll get used to it in no time. Now, Ivern has a second passive hidden up his sleeve, and that means that after level 5, every buff that Ivern takes will drop a second buff just for his teammates. They have 1 minute to collect it before it disappears. Likewise, if your team takes a buff, it drops a buff just for Ivern to pick up. So no more having to give up your buffs to your laners with Ivern. Next, we're going to talk about Ivern's abilities. Now, Q is the root caller. This is a long-range projectile snare that will root the first enemy champion, minion, or monster that it hits. The root lasts for 1.2 to 2 seconds based on level. If the snare hits an enemy, Ivern and all of his allies can attack that enemy to be immediately dashed into their auto-attack range. Now, something to note here is that Ivern will be dashed into melee range, and we'll see why a bit later on. Ivern's W is the brush maker. This is a unique ability that allows Ivern to actually create a brush at the target location, and it also empowers his auto attacks when he's inside it and for the first 3 seconds after he leaves the brush. When Ivern uses it, it will also reveal the area inside and around it for 3 seconds. Ivern's E is Trigger Seed. Not only a shield, not only an AoE magic attack that scales really well with AP, but also an AoE slow. This is probably Ivern's strongest ability, and in 99% of games you'll be maxing E first because it can do everything. Last up is Ivern's ult. This is Daisy. Daisy is Ivern's loyal companion and the honorary 6th team member. Ivern can summon Daisy at level 6 onwards, and not only can she attack enemies, but if she hits the same champion 3 times in a row, she sends out a shockwave. This will knock up all enemies in a line for 1 second. The shockwave has a short 3-second cooldown, so it can come up multiple times in teamfights if she stays alive, and gives you some really good hard CC. On top of this, Daisy can use Ivern's root caller dash, she can take monster aggro, and she can even be shielded with his E, so she really is like a 6th team member. And unlike the rest of them, this one you can control. So to sum up, Ivern has hard CC, soft CC, a shield, empowered auto attacks, he can make brushes, summon a team member, reveal an area, and all of it scales really, really well with AP. So you must be wondering why the jungler with the lowest pick rate in Season 9 suddenly is gaining popularity, despite the fact that Ivern hasn't really changed in Season 10. Well, the best way to answer this is to look at his synergies. Firstly, he synergizes great with melee champs. His Q gives them an instant gap close, his E does AoE damage, so it's best used on a melee champion that's got to get into the thick of it anyway, and also the slow on his E helps those melee champs chase down those ganks and secure those kills in laning phase. With multiple Season 10 buffs to top lane, including buffs to items such as Blade of the Ruined King, Death Stance, and Ravenous Hydra, but also buffs to turret platings and Rift Herald, it's really helped top laners stay relevant and really increase their power. Likewise, that's increased Ivern's power and increased Ivern's relevance. Ivern also works great with any auto attack heavy champions, and with the buffs not only to ADCs, but to the items ADCs use, which can also be used on champions like Yasuo and Tryndamere, this has once again increased Ivern's power in the current meta. Okay guys, now we're going to talk about runes. I'm going to make sure I go over every single rune so you know why you should take it, when you should take it, and also why you shouldn't take the other runes. So right now I'm just going to focus on Aerie. This is because of the nerfs to Guardian in patch 10.13. I don't think Guardian is viable on Ivern anymore, and I think Aerie should be taken 100% of the time. So first up, of course, we have Aerie itself. Aerie is a great keystone. It's got extra shielding for your allies, it's got extra damage, it can really help you in those early team fights. It can proc on auto attacks, but it won't proc if you shield yourself, so just bear those two things in mind. And it also gives you access to all 3 tiers of sorcery runes, which, as we're going to see, offers some great things for Ivern. So into sorcery, line 1, I will go Nimbus Cloak all the time. This is a great rune for junglers because it synergizes well with Smite, and for Ivern it synergizes with Hex Flash as well, as we'll see in a bit. We don't need to go Banner Flow ban because Ivern just does not have mana issues. Between the jungle item, his buff passive, so he's got blue buffs all the time, and the mana regen from all the support items that he builds, it's really unnecessary. And also Nullifying Orb, not particularly necessary on Ivern. Firstly, you're not going to be proccing it that much because as a jungler you won't fight that much. But secondly, the safety from Nimbus Cloak and the speed boost you get after you flash there is probably actually better, even if you're going into an AP jungler where you might think that Nullifying Orb would be better. Now on the second line, we're going to go Transcendence. Again, this is a rune I take 100% of the time. Ivern loves cooldown reduction, and not only does it give you that cooldown reduction at level 10, but because Ivern buys so many cooldown reducing items, he will almost always max his cooldown reduction, which is actually a good thing because Transcendence passive gives you cooldown reduction converted into AP. And that means that for every percent CDR that you have above the max, which for you will be 40 or 45%, that you will get another 2 AP. And like we've talked about, Ivern's AP scalings are so good that this is really, really important. I've had games where I've had over 50 AP coming just from Transcendence because I've had so much extra cooldown reduction. So Celerity, you don't really want to go this. This is a pretty useless rune on Ivern because he's not really got any movement speed increasing abilities, and he's not really using movement speed to get in most of the time. It does synergize fairly well with Nimbus Cloak and Hex Flash, but Transcendence is giving you so much that this is just not enough in my opinion. And then Absolute Focus, this doesn't scale nearly as well as Transcendence. Like I said, at level 18 full build, you're probably going to be getting way more than 30 AP from the Transcendence, and it's way less consistent because you have to be above 70% HP as Ivern. Now for the last line, we're going to either go Water Walking or Gathering Storm. Water Walking and Moby Boots works great if you're a proactive and very early game heavy, gank heavy Ivern playstyle. It's great for chasing down those mobile laners if they're getting away from you and you've ganked, and it's just great for map control, especially with Moby Boots. However, Gathering Storm, like I said, it gives you that great scaling into the late game, great AP ratios on his abilities mean that it's a fantastic rune. So really this is going to depend on your playstyle, but also the matchup. Like, are you expecting to be fighting in the river a lot? Are you expecting them to survive ganks just a little bit or be very mobile and getting away into river? Or are you expecting them to just be lockdownable and killable and very easy to maintain an advantage over? Again, like I said, it's going to depend on you, your matchup, your playstyle. So try them all out and see what happens. Scorch is not a rune you should be taking. It doesn't give AP, it's just damage rune, and it's very lane focused with that low 10-second cooldown. You just can't proc it as Ivern. And Gathering Storm, in my opinion, outscales Scorch at as soon as you get it at 10 minutes, because Ivern has great AP scalings, and I think this is true for all supporting champions that can heal or shield that scale with AP. So yeah, you don't want to be taking Scorch. Now for the second tree, we're going to go Cosmic Insight. Once again, this is a no-brainer. I take it 100% of the time because Ivern loves his CDR, but not only does it give you cooldown reduction, it gives you item cooldown reduction for your Zhonya's or your Locket, and it gives you Summoner Spell cooldown reduction for your Flash and your Smite. So it's just a fantastic rune. For the second rune, I will either go Hex Flash or Futures Market. Now Hex Flash works great with Nimbus Cloak, and it works great with Cosmic Insight, and it works great with a proactive jungle style where you'll be ganking a lot, because it can open up ganking opportunities that aren't there otherwise. There are also some cool things that you can do with Ivern's Root Caller going in and Hex Flashing out that we'll talk about a bit later on, but it just opens up a playstyle that otherwise you wouldn't have. Now, if you don't like Hex Flash, or it's disabled because Riot broke Kayn again, then you can go Futures Market. This is a nice rune on Ivern because it protects you from having a bad back. It's also fairly useful if you have a very invasive jungler and you're very, very wary of the matchup. If you think he's going to be stealing your camps and ruining your pathing a lot, then Futures Market will protect you from having to go back and buy nothing, because you're always going to be able to get that sub item or maybe even that full item and really make that back worthwhile. Now, for the runes that you don't need, you don't want Approach Velocity and you don't want Time Warp Tonic, because you really, really want that Cosmic Insight. They're not worth losing that extra 5% CDR and all the other things it gives you. There's Magical Footwear. Now, this is a very important rune to not take, because Ivern loves his boots. They're a big power spike, and they're probably going to be the first or maybe second thing that you buy. You do not want to delay it till 12 minutes. Even if you stomp them and you get a few kills, you're still going to want boots before you get them with this. So I will never ever take Magical Footwear on Ivern. This is very important. Then there's Biscuits and Minion Dematerializer. They're not very useful on Ivern because obviously he's a jungler and these are lane focus runes, so you shouldn't be taking them. And then there's Perfect Timing. This gives you a stopwatch. Now, even though I do buy Zhonya's on Ivern fairly regularly because I think it's a great item, I don't think this is worth it. I think Hex Flash is much more useful, and unless you're 100% sure you're buying Zhonya's, this will never really pay for itself. So I would always suggest going Hex Flash or Futures Market instead. Now for the sub runes, I will normally go cooldown reduction, followed by Adaptive Force, followed by a defensive rune to suit, but you can also go double Adaptive Force. The big difference here is that cooldown reduction outscales Adaptive Force, assuming you've got max cooldown reduction and Transcendence, at just level 9, whereas the Adaptive Force is much better early game. So really, you're going to want to choose, do you want that early game skirmish ability, where you want max Adaptive Force straight away, or do you want that late game AP scaling? So that's about it for runes. Hopefully this will help you really understand why you're taking the runes you're taking on Ivern, rather than just giving you a rune page, and hopefully you're going to be able to change these to your playstyle and really get the most out of them. Now for items. Itemization on Ivern is fairly straightforward, at least early on. Your starting items are a Hunter's Talisman and a Replenishing Potion, and on first back you're probably going to want to buy boots. Your boot choices will normally come down to cooldown boots or mobility boots, but don't be afraid to go for a defensive boot choice if they've got a full AD team or if you're really having trouble with an early invade. Cooldown boots are cheaper, they offer a bigger early game power spike in fights and better late game scaling with Transcendence. Mobility boots, however, offer way better map control and easier ganking. So this choice is going to depend on the matchup and your playstyle. If you feel you can really dominate the enemy in fights, then cooldown boots are probably for you, but if you feel like you want to take big map control and have as many ganks as possible to really get your laners ahead, then mobility boots are going to be the best option. After boots, you will be opting for full support items. You will never build the full jungle item on Ivern. It's not worth it compared to these really cheap support items such as a Fiend's Unholy Grail, Ardent Censer and Redemption. These are the free core items for Ivern, and you'll build them almost every single game. Not only do they synergize great with his kit, but they're ridiculously cheap. You'll usually start with Grail, followed by Redemption and then Ardent Censer. But as with any champion, you've got to be able to itemize on the fly. If you're noticing loads of early game team fights, then Redemption's going to be a really good early pick because it's going to be able to swing them around in a second. But if you've got a fed ADC or auto attack heavy top laners such as Tryndamere or Yasuo, then you're going to want to get that Ardent Sensor quicker. Really, it's up to you to watch what's happening, who's fed, who's doing well, and itemize accordingly. Remember that Ivern is a very supporting champ, and noticing who's doing well on your team and itemizing accordingly is very important. Finally, into the late game, you're going to sell your Hunter's Talisman, leaving room for control wards, and look to buy some tankier support items such as Locket of the Iron Solari, Knight's Vow, or even Zhonya's. These are going to depend on what type of damage the enemy is doing, as well as what you need for survivability. Zhonya's can be great if they've got a fed Zed, because it will really help you survive that ult. During all of this, if you're starting to snowball, if you're doing really well, Darkseal or even Medjay's can be a great purchase on Ivern because, as we've said, he scales great with AP and he can really use those stacks. Okay, now for Ivern's jungle path. You're going to start at Wolves, right between these two little curved lines on the ground here, and then you're going to move to Blue, and then you're going to move to Gromp. Once you finish Gromp, you're going to head down to Red Buff. Once you get to Red Buff, you're going to use Smite. This will give you level 2 by instantly collecting it, and then you'll move straight up to Raptors, which you'll set up before moving back to Topside. As you move back to Topside, of course, you'll collect the camps you set up earlier, Wolves, Blue, and then Gromp, and then it's straight up to top for a gank. As you're moving up to top lane for a gank, be aware that Scuttle still has 30 seconds to spawn, maybe more, so you've got plenty of time to wait around here to clear vision or to fight if you need to. Once your gank's finished, you can move down to Scuttle. This is where you use your second Smite. Ivern has the fastest level 3 Scuttle take when he has Smite. You just set the camp up, smite it, collect it, and then you're off on your way. Once Scuttle's done, you can head down to Raptors and then to Krugs for a full clear, or you can look for more gank opportunities. As you can see, Ivern has a super healthy, super fast clear, so it really doesn't matter where you go from here. It's up to you to check the map and just see what's best. Okay, so now we're going to go on to some tips and tricks to really help you master Ivern. These are just small little things, they don't need their own section, but you really need to know them if you want to play Ivern the best you can. Number 1. Make your jungle paths much faster by using Q to jump walls and skip corners on your way to a camp. Using this is an absolute must on Ivern. It's actually the reason that Root Caller brings him into melee distance rather than into his auto attack range, because Ivern actually used to be melee, and it was so common for Ivern players to use this that they asked Riot to change it back so he would be dragged into melee distance. A nice tip for this is that as Ivern, you can actually just reactivate Q and be immediately dashed to the target that's been rooted instead of having to actually click on them. So by spamming Q as you shoot your Root Caller over a wall to a camp, you can get there really, really quickly. Also, by mastering this, you'll start to learn exactly how long Ivern's Q max range is, and you'll really start to help yourself in your mechanical skill, and it'll really help you in ganks as you learn exactly how to fire your Q, and you'll even be able to start predicting people and really maximizing your utilization of this ability. Number 2, using your dash wisely. This is also known as Lee Sin syndrome, and it's probably one of the most common mistakes with newer Ivern players. They hit a great route and they immediately attack the enemy, they get dragged into melee range and just get deleted. While spamming Q is a great way to get around in the jungle, it's a pretty bad way to get around in a team fight. You should only use your dash when your immediate damage is necessary or they pose no threat. The one exception here is if you're trying to chase somebody down in the jungle, they're highly mobile and you're just trying to keep up with them. So this will be the case in a lot of your early ganks and if you're ever caught out alone, but as you get into the team fights into the mid and the late game, you're actually going to be wanting to dash onto them very rarely. Let your team do it, stay back, and you'll achieve more by buffing the carries and keeping the tanks alive. Number 3, use your W to maintain vision. This is probably Ivern's most underutilized ability, and it can be a total lifesaver in so many situations. Be it a way to stop you having to face check a bush, or queue over a wall into no vision, or to maintain vision when you're in a big fight and the enemy has vision control. Because you've got to remember, not only does it give vision inside the brush that you put down, but it also reveals the surrounding area for a full 3 seconds and they can't kill it. So it's a really great way to give your team some vision control when they absolutely must have it. Number 4, using Daisy on objectives. I told you Daisy was the honorary 6th team member, and I meant it. As early as level 6, you can solo, or I guess duo Drake with Daisy, by having Daisy tank all the damage for you. By shielding her with your E and using your W passive for empowered auto attacks, you can take down Drake in no time, and you don't have to take any damage yourself. So if somebody comes and you need to fight, you're ready to go. Number 5, using Daisy on towers. Just like on the objective, you can use Daisy to tank under a tower, stall for a wave, or just do some extra damage when you really need to get that plating in the early game, or if you're waiting for a wave and you want to let the rest of your team hammer on that tower and get it down after you've won a team fight. Number 6, Hex Flash Camp Steals. Now this is a pretty fun combo. You use W to give you vision, you then use Root Caller to dash over to an enemy buff, you set it up, smite it, and Hex Flash away. Unless they have vision inside the buff pit, they'll never even see you and you'll just be gone in seconds. It's a great way to steal buffs on Ivern, and once you're past level 5, even drop a buff for your teammates to go and get as well. This can be a total game changer when used correctly, and a lot of people don't really expect it, especially in the lower elos, where people massively underestimate Ivern on the enemy team. Number 7, targeting your E. Now this is a tip that works for a lot of champions, pretty much any champion that can shield or heal or has some sort of ally targeted ability. But I think it's very important to let you know that you can do this on Ivern, because even the best of us can miss our E in these big hectic team fights. So what you can actually do is use your E on the profile border that has a little champion icon above the minimap, and then it will shield the champion as soon as it gets into range and give the exact right ability to the exact right person. Now this can be because they're low health, which is also shown right below this little profile, or because you want to give Ardent Sensor to the right champion. Either way, it's a great way to ensure that you're doing the right abilities at the right time to the right people. And that's it. If you've made it this far, I really hope the video has helped you out a lot. If it did, give it a thumbs up. If you want to see what's up next in the series, be sure to subscribe. And if I missed anything, please tell me in the comments below. I'll see you guys next time.